Yo, what is up guys? James D Buzzard, and today I'm going to show you guys how I create highly clickable thumbnails for myself and for my clients. This is one of the biggest things that I'm asked typically when I'm giving a client a video is either how did you make that thumbnail or how do I create a thumbnail. Today I'm going to show you guys exactly how I create these thumbnails in literally less than 5 minutes. The tutorial will take longer than 5 minutes, but I create these thumbnails every single day in under 5 minutes, and it's a great way to upsell your clients, or it's just a great way to be able to create a couple different thumbnails for a single video in order to A/B test them. So I'm gonna go ahead and jump on the computer and show you guys how to get this done. Let's get it. Jumping onto the computer, the very first thing we're gonna wanna do is navigate over to canva.com. Now you guys can use any image editor that you guys want. You guys can use Photoshop, Illustrator, Affinity Photo. You guys can use anything that you guys want to edit your guys' thumbnails, but I find that Canva is just super easy to learn, and it allows you to create in layers. Not the most intuitively, but it allows you guys to create in layers in a really simple and quick to learn way. So we're gonna be using Canva today, but again, you guys can use any image editor that you guys want. So navigating over to canva.com, you guys are gonna go over to the top right corner and you guys are gonna click create a design. Once you guys click create a design, you guys can go ahead and type in YouTube. Now, once you guys come over here, you guys are gonna notice that Canva has all sorts of different templates or different preset dimensions for you guys to click on. We're gonna go ahead and click on the YouTube thumbnail since that was what we're working on today, but that should be a 1280 by 720 dimension or image size. So we're gonna go ahead and click on that, and that's gonna bring up that 1280 by 720 image for us to start working on. Now, over in Canva, they have all sorts of different templates for you guys to pick from. Right over here in the design tab, which we'll go through the tab super quick, but over here we have all sorts of different templates. You guys can literally just click and drag a template over here, and you guys can edit the photo, you guys can edit all the text, and really make this thing look the way you guys want, but we're gonna do this from scratch today. So I'm going to go over here to our different elements tab, and this is where you guys can find all sorts of different like clip art kind of stuff. You guys can find different gradients to use as backgrounds. You guys can find different photos. You guys can use different tables if you guys want to create different tables or maybe like a layout of photos. There's also all sorts of different picture frames and stuff like that. So all sorts of different elements, they call them here in Canva, for you guys to use in your guys' different graphics that you guys are creating. You guys can also upload all sorts of different images and different assets to use here in Canva in this upload tab, or you can just click and drag them straight from the folder directly into Canva, which I'll show you here in a minute. Right below the uploads tab, you guys are gonna see the text tab. In the text tab, you guys have simple headings, you guys have a subheadings that you guys can add, and you guys have bodies of text that you guys can add. Below that though is where it has all the pre-made templates, so you guys can even just simply click and drag in this pre-made template and edit that from there, which we'll go over we'll go over some of this in today's tutorial, but just in case you guys aren't familiar with Canva, I just wanted to go over some of these basic tabs for you guys to see. So the very first thing that you guys are gonna wanna think about when you guys are creating these simple thumbnails is what do you guys wanna use as a background and what do you guys wanna use as the foreground, or what is gonna be the subject of your guys' thumbnail? Those are the first two things that I think about. From there, I want to think about how I kind of want to visualize the overall text layout of my thumbnail. And I usually keep it really simple with the subject right in the center of the thumbnail and then the text in some way around that subject. So for today's thumbnail, we're going to be using an image-based thumbnail, but depending on what image you guys have, it may have a super busy background. So I'm going to use a image today with somewhat of a busy background and give you guys a couple tips and tricks on how you guys can unbusy the background or make it a little bit more appealing and make your subject or make the foreground pop out a lot more from that background. So if you guys don't already have your image uploaded to Canva that you guys want to use, you guys can just open up the folder that you guys have your images in and click and drag those directly over to Canva. Now, you guys can use any image that you guys want. You guys can use dedicated photos that you guys took, or you guys can do what I do a lot of the times and just use a simple screen grab from your edited piece, and just grab one of those screen grabs and bring that over to Canva and use that as your background and your foreground. So I'm gonna come down here to this image here, and this is actually an image that TJ, the artist, wanted me to use for this thumbnail specifically. So I'm gonna go ahead and click and drag this thumbnail and resize it to the size that I actually wanna use for this thumbnail. I typically want those eyes on that third line, which is about where you guys are seeing my eyes here in this video. Now in Canva, it'll actually give you those third lines if you have the image set to the background. If you don't have the image set to the background, you won't be able to see those third lines. If you guys are having a hard time with it, go ahead and click and drag your image to the top left corner, and that will automatically snap it to the background. From there, you guys can double click the image, and this is just to see the third lines again. So you can double click the image, and this is gonna allow me to see, okay, I need the image to be about that big for TJ's eyes to be on the third line where I want them. So now I can put the image here in the center, and I can just click and drag that till it's about the same size as it was before. And now I'm gonna go ahead and put TJ right here in the center where I wanted him. And before we unclick or deselect or click anything else in Canva, because once we do unselect this image, it's automatically gonna snap it to our background, and we won't be able to copy paste it anymore. Again, Canva has some small quirks, and it's not as intuitive as Photoshop and some of the other image editing programs. Once you deselect that, it's gonna snap it to the background. So we're gonna copy that background right now. Now we can click anywhere outside of the canvas, and that's gonna automatically snap TJ to the background. So now we can click and we can just do a quick Control V, and that's gonna paste that image right back where it was. So from here, we can actually come up to Edit Image. And this is something that I showed a client just a couple weeks ago how to do this, and they were blown away by this process. So if you guys take away anything from this tutorial, I think this is the thing to take away. So first we are going to remove the background. Once we remove the background is gone from this image. So you guys could check this, but I typically just, I'll check it later if I notice any problems with it. But the first thing I want to do is I want to actually change this background or crop it using these little bars on the side. I want to crop in on the image. If you don't crop in on the image, again, anytime an image in Canva is encapsulating the entire canvas, it's automatically going to snap it to the background, which is super annoying all the time. But if you guys are aware of that, it'll happen a lot less and you'll get frustrated a lot less. So I'm going to go ahead and resize this image so it is no longer encapsulating the entire background. In fact, I'm gonna make it so it's just as big as TJ is. But again, I forgot to tell you guys, I like to leave one corner intact so that I can always click and drag and get this image realigned super quick and easy if I lose the alignment of this photo. So now I know if I click on over here on the background and now I click on the foreground and move TJ anywhere in this photo, I can quickly get him back to where I need him just by, putting him back in that corner. Another thing that you guys can do is come up here to the top right, and you guys could actually just simply lock that image, which maybe we'll lock it for this tutorial just so I can show you guys kind of locking and unlocking. But now that we have two separate layers made. We have our background layer and we have our foreground layer, which we're using TJ as our foreground, and we're using this cool blue studio room as our background. Now I'm gonna go ahead and click on our background, and I'm gonna click Edit Image. Now we're gonna go ahead and make some adjustments to this image. the first one I want to make is I want to edit the brightness of this image. I want to turn the brightness of this image down so that more of the attention is on TJ, and TJ is going to be the brightest thing in this background or in this thumbnail. So I'm going to go ahead and lower the brightness of the background to maybe -10. And then I'm going to lower some of the highlights down here. I'm going to lower the highlights down a bunch. So I'm actually going to lower the highlights down -100 just for this photo and just for this example. You guys are going to want to do that to taste depending on the image that you guys have. Now, I'm actually going to darken this image just a tiny bit more. And now the next thing, and typically the final thing that I'll do, is I'll add some amount of blur to the image. Now, if I'm adding a moderate amount of blur or just a small amount of blur, I'll usually won't really go past 4. Once you kind of go past 4, it starts looking more artistic than realistic, if that makes any sense. So I typically don't go past a 4 if I want to keep this thing looking realistic. So for this example, I'm going to end up leaving it at a 3, but I want to show you guys can take this background and pretty much make it into a gradient. All you got to do is crank up that blur and it'll make this background pretty much into a gradient, which I think looks really, really cool depending on what photo you have. But for today's tutorial, I'm just going to leave it at 3. But let me know what you guys like better. Did you guys like it better as the gradient, or did you guys like it better set to just a small amount of blur or a realistic amount of background blur at a 3? So we are now done with our background layer. So I'm going to leave that background the same, and we're going to come over here to our foreground layer, which we needed to unlock. Typically, I do not have these locked. So go ahead and unlock your foreground layer, and we're going to hit Edit Image, and we're going to just pretty much do the opposite of what we just did to our background. So instead of darkening it, we're going to brighten up our foreground just a little bit. So I'm going to brighten up this image just a tiny bit at a 3. Let's see what it looks like if we add a little bit of warmth to it. I'm gonna add a 5 of warmth to this image. And I'm going to come over here to our highlights. And I'm just going to bump our highlights up just a tiny bit to about an 8 on this image. And, you know, you guys can adjust this to taste. You guys can take your time and do everything. But for the purpose of this tutorial, let's go ahead and move on to the next thing, which is, in my opinion, one of the funnest parts. And that is to add the text. Now, when you guys are adding text to a thumbnail, I would suggest that you guys don't use any of the wording that you guys used for your title. The purpose of the text in the thumbnail is to either, one, get that person to instantly click that video to view it, or you guys want them to read the title and read more about the title and then click the video. You kind of want your title and your thumbnail to work together in order to get people to actually click on to view that video, which is the whole purpose of the title and the thumbnail. I'm gonna go ahead and bring this thumbnail, or bring this glow in. And again, I just click and drag that text template over here. Now I'm gonna click this, I'm gonna type in 1 take. Now I need this to be about as wide as the safety margins are here in Canva. So when you're resizing this text, you guys will see that we have some safety margins. I typically like to keep the text within those safety margins, those purple safety margins. Just a good rule of thumb in order to not be, for your text not to be taking up too much of the thumbnail. And sometimes when you're displaying it on different social media platforms, it'll actually crop in a little bit on that thumbnail. So I just like to keep it within that the safety margins here in Canva. So I'm gonna go ahead and highlight all of this text, and we are going to make this text way smaller. I'm just gonna type it in. Let's go 180 on there, and I want to go a little bigger than that actually. So we're gonna go, actually I do like 180, but I want to actually space this out a little bit more, just maybe at 30% or at 30. So we're gonna space that out just a little bit more, and I'm gonna put an extra space in here. But I'm gonna put an extra space in there, guys, and now I just want this to be in a nice location. So I'm gonna put this right here where it's gonna be kind of peeking out of TJ, and let me show you the magic. This is where everybody's always like, yo, that's pretty cool, how'd you do that? And this is how I make them super, super, super easy. So I'm literally just gonna click on this TJ layer right here, and I'm gonna bring it forward or bring it to the front. And that's gonna create this super awesome more 3D effect to our text and our background layer and our foreground layer, just by simply, you know, kind of layering everything like that. So we have our background, then we have our text, and then in front of our text we have our actual foreground image or our subject of the thumbnail. And I actually kind of want to resize this just a little bit more. So now that we kind of have the text, I'm going to rearrange this just a little bit so it's just a little bit bigger in here. So instead of having this super long text box like this, all I'm going to do is make this text box smaller, so it's about as small as it can go before it bounces to a new line. And then I'm going to make this wider so it takes up the entire safety margins of this thumbnail. Now that we have that, I'm gonna do one last little finishing touch, and I'm gonna come over here and grab a yellowish hue off of TJ's shirt. And if we don't get quite the right yellowish hue, because he has on this gold necklace, so I specifically want it to be more yellow or more gold. So I'm gonna just make this a little bit more gold in here. And that's really just gonna warm up or warmthen this whole thumbnail. This is just how I create highly clickable thumbnails in Canva. I think the biggest thing that I can, or the biggest piece of advice that I could give to you guys is to create depth in your guys' image, is to create that illusion that your thumbnail is 3D. And the best way that I've found to do that is by creating that, you know, nice blurry or a nice background, and, you know, creating that foreground layer and then putting the text in between that. And then whatever else you guys want to do from there, or whatever else you guys want to build upon in your thumbnails from there, I think is going to be a huge plus and an awesome cherry on top. But this is the basics that you guys need in order to create a highly clickable, awesome thumbnail for YouTube. So you guys asked for it. That is how I create my thumbnails. Let me know if you guys have any other questions, or if you guys have any other things that you guys want to see in Canva. I create a ton of, you know, different things in Canva, from thumbnails to different marketing assets for my business, and even video assets for my different videos. So if you guys want to see anything like that, let me know in the comments down below. Let me know if you guys got anything out of this video that really helps me improve things in the future. That is all that I had for today's video. I will catch you guys in the next one. Peace.